I want to tell you about the moment I walked down the aisle at my wedding. I was 26 years old. I was wearing a dress I loved. The man I was going to marry was standing at the end of the aisle. He was looking at me the way you spend your whole life hoping someone will look at you. And my mother was not there. Not because she was sick, not because she was too far away, not because something unexpected had happened the day before that kept her from making it. She was in jail. I was 26 years old, walking down the aisle toward the rest of my life, and my mother was in jail. And here is the thing I need you to understand about that moment. The thing that makes it complicated in a way that is hard to explain. I was not surprised. I had been living with her absence in one form or another since I was 14 years old. That is 8 years. 8 years of already knowing that she was not going to show up in the ways that mattered. 8 years of building a life without her in it, quietly, necessarily, one milestone at a time. She was not at my high school graduation. She was not at my college graduation. She was not at my pharmacy school graduation, the degree I worked for years, the credential I earned from nothing. The thing I built entirely on my own and with no safety net. Those seats were empty. All of them. My husband, the man standing at the end of that aisle, had met my mother exactly once before our wedding day. Once. Because that was all there was to meet. That was the full extent of the relationship I had been able to offer him when it came to my family of origin. One meeting. One awkward, careful, closely managed meeting. And then a wedding she did not attend. And later the births of my 3 daughters. She was not there for any of them. Not in the waiting room, not on the phone, not in any of the ways a grandmother is supposed to arrive when her grandchildren come into the world. For each of those births, I was navigating the most profound moments of my life without the person who was supposed to be standing behind me. I am telling you all of this because I want you to understand what I mean when I say I have been mothering without a mother for a very long time. Not just since I had children, since I was a child myself. And today I want to talk about what that actually looks like, what it costs, what it builds in you, and what you do when the person who was supposed to show you how to do the most important thing you will ever do simply never shows up. I am Maeve Calloway. Welcome back to Motherhood, Unfiltered. If you have been watching this series from the beginning, you know my mother's story. If you are new here, feel free to watch episode 1 to hear my story. Today I want to talk about something I have not fully addressed yet. Not what it was like to grow up without the mother I needed. The specific experience of building something you have no model for. Of raising children while simultaneously learning, for the first time, what children are supposed to receive. This episode is for the women who know exactly what I mean when I say, I am making this up as I go. Not because I did not prepare. Because there was no blueprint, because the person who was supposed to hand me one never did. When people say mothering without a mother, they usually mean the emotional piece, the lack of support, the missing relationship, the holidays with a specific kind of quiet, and all of that is real. But there is a practical dimension to it that I do not think gets talked about enough. I did not know things, basic things. Things that other women seem to absorb by osmosis, by watching their mothers, by being daughters in a certain kind of house, by having access to a person who had done this before and could just tell them. I Googled how to swaddle a newborn at 2 a.m. I Googled what a fever actually meant and when to actually worry about it. I Googled how to talk to a toddler about death when our dog died, and I had no idea what words to use because no one had ever found right words for me. I called pediatricians with questions I was embarrassed to ask because other mothers seemed to already know the answers. I read parenting books cover to cover, not because I enjoy parenting books, but because I had no other source. No one to call. No one who had held my children when they were babies and could tell me from experience what this stage was, how long it lasted, whether this was normal. Other women had their mothers in the delivery room, their mothers at their baby showers. Their mothers on speed dial for the 3 a.m. panic. Their mothers teaching them how to make the thing their grandmother used to make. The recipe that is not written down anywhere because it has always just been passed from woman to woman in a kitchen. I did not have that. I do not have that. And there is a grief in it that is so ordinary. It almost disappears until you are standing in a kitchen trying to make something from scratch with no one to call, and you feel it fresh. And I want to be honest about something that took me a long time to admit, because it is not a flattering emotion, and I think we are not supposed to say it out loud. I was jealous of my friends, of women I barely knew, anyone who had what I did not have, a mother who showed up, a mother who called, a mother they could bring their children to and watch something easy and unconditional happen. I would watch those relationships and feel something sharp and hot in my chest that I did not want to name. And underneath the jealousy, there was a question I asked myself more times than I can count. Why me? Why was I the one being punished like this? What did I do to deserve a mother who could not love me in the way I needed? Why did other people get to just have this ordinary given thing, a mother, and I had to grieve it my entire life? Life is unfair. I know that. I have always known that. But knowing something is unfair does not stop you from feeling the injustice of it in your body. From lying awake at 14, at 20, at 35, still asking the same question. Why me? I do not have a clean answer to that question. I am not sure one exists. What I have learned is that asking it, truly sitting with it, and letting myself feel how unfair it was is part of the grief that has to be processed. You cannot move through something you are not willing to feel. And I was not willing to feel the jealousy for a long time. When I finally was, something in me got a little quieter. I told you about the wedding. I told you about the graduations. But there is a category of milestone beyond the obvious ones. The smaller, more ordinary moments that hit you sideways because you do not see them coming. The births of my daughters. Each one. I was in labor with my first daughter for 19 hours. And then they told me I needed a C-section, which meant surgery, which meant a recovery that is not small. Weeks of healing, of not being able to lift things, of a body that had been opened and needed time and someone to be there. And then I had a second C-section and a third. 3 times I came home from a hospital with a newborn and a body that had just been through major surgery. And I did it without my mother. No one to take the baby so I could sleep. No one who had been through it and could tell me this is hard, but it passes. No one whose presence said, "You are not alone in this." I was alone in this. Every single time. The first day of school, standing in that hallway watching my oldest walk through the door, feeling 2 things at once, pride so large it was almost painful, and grief, because there was no one behind me who shared my history with her. No grandmother waiting to hear how it went. The recitals where I am the one recording and there is no one in the row behind me who shares my blood. The school performances where I look around and see grandmothers crying in the audience and feel something I cannot quite name, not jealousy exactly. More like the recognition of a specific absence I have learned to carry quietly. Mother's Day. Which is entirely about me now, and I receive that fully, I do. But Mother's Day has a specific kind of void that I do not think people who have mothers fully understand. It is not just that I cannot celebrate her. It is that I do not even know where she is. I would not know how to find her if I tried. And even if I could, even if I picked up the phone and somehow reached her, I know how that call ends. It ends in a fight, or in her being angry at me for something I did not do, or in me hanging up feeling worse than before I called. So I do not call, and the day passes, and I sit in the middle of being celebrated by my daughters. My daughters will never have a grandmother on my side. They will grow up with a gap in their family tree that I cannot fully explain. Carefully in age-appropriate pieces, as they grow old enough to understand, and that grief for what they are also missing, not just what I missed is its own specific weight. One I did not expect and have never fully put down. The grief of mothering without a mother does not show up on schedule. It does not arrive at the expected times and then politely leave. It shows up in a grocery store when I overhear a woman on the phone with her mother asking what she should make for dinner. Something so small, so ordinary, and I feel it land somewhere in my chest before I even understand why. It shows up when my daughters are sick and I am the one managing everything: the medicine, the temperature checks, the middle of the night comfortan. There is no one I can call who will worry about them the way a grandmother worries. No one whose concern for my children is as instinctive and unconditional as mine is. I am the end of that line. The worry stops with me. It shows up when my 12-year-old does something that astonishes me, something funny, or wise, or breathtakingly her, and my first instinct is to tell someone who shares history with me. Someone who knew me when I was 12, someone who would understand through that lens what it means that she is who she is, and that person does not exist in my life in the way I need her to. I have learned that grief does not always announce itself. Sometimes it just slides into an ordinary Tuesday and sits down without asking. And the only thing to do is make room for it and feel it, name it, and let it pass through instead of building walls to keep it out. I am not sad every day about this. I want to be clear about that. I have built a life that is genuinely full, but the grief is real, and it is ongoing, and it deserves to be named. Because too many women are carrying it silently, believing they should be over it by now, believing it should not still hurt this much. It feels like a secret I'm holding all the time, even when I'm smiling. It is allowed to still hurt. There is no timeline on this particular loss. Here is what I have learned about mothering without a mother. You do not get to skip the village. You just have to build it yourself. And building it yourself when you did not grow up watching how it is done. When you do not have the natural network that comes from a family that shows uppies its own kind of work. It requires you to ask for things you were never taught to ask for. It requires vulnerability with people you did not grow up with. It requires choosing your people deliberately instead of inheriting them. I have done that work. I have found the women and the friends, the mentors, the therapist who has known me long enough to see patterns I cannot see myself, who make up the village I did not come with. None of them are my mother. None of them fill that specific shape, but they are real and they are present and they are mine in a way I chose, which is its own kind of powerful. I have also learned to mother myself through the moments that should have been hers. The moments I needed someone to tell me I was doing okay. The moments I needed permission to be imperfect. The moments I needed someone who had been through it to say, this is normal, this is hard, this will pass. I have had to become that voice for myself, slowly, imperfectly, with a lot of therapy and a lot of mistakes. But I have learned to say to myself what I needed her to say. And that is small and insufficient as it sometimes feels is not nothing. That is actually everything. My daughters ask about my mother, and I want to tell you how that conversation actually goes. Because it is not a neat, one-time explanation. It is a question that comes back in different forms as they get older and understand more. My youngest asked me recently, and the simplicity of it stopped me cold. She said, "Mom, do you even have a mother?" Yes, I told her. Of course I have a mother. She looked at me the way 5-year-olds look at you when they are not sure the answer you gave was the whole answer. And then she said, "So why do you not speak to her?" And I said the thing I have said to all three of them, in the versions that fight their ages. She is sick. She is sick in her head. She was very mean to me for many years. And she is not able to have a healthy relationship with me, not because I did not try, but because she does not have the capacity for it. Some people are not able to give what you need from them, no matter how much you love them or how long you wait. And protecting yourself from that is not giving up. It is taking care of yourself. I do not tell them she was in jail. Not yet. I do not tell them the full story of what those years look like. They are 5 and 9 and 12. They will get the pieces they are ready for, as they are ready for them. I will not lie, but I will also not put weight on them that belongs to me. What I do tell them and what I believe completely is this. The love that was never given to me did not disappear. It is here. It became the reason I parent the way I parent. The reason I get on the floor. The reason I say I am sorry. The reason I show up to every single thing. The grandmother they do not have is part of why their mother loves them the way she does. Not despite the absence. Because of it. I do not know if I am getting this exactly right. I am figuring it out in real time. It's the way I figure out everything. But it is honest. And in this house, honest is what we do. If you are mothering without a mother, if you are building this from scratch, without a blueprint, without the person you were supposed to be able to call, I want you to hear this. You are not failing because you do not know things other mothers seem to know. You are not behind. You are not broken. You are building something from raw materials that other people receive pre-assembled. And that is harder, and it counts, and it matters. The village you are building by choice is not lesser than the one other women inherited. It might actually be stronger because you chose every person in it deliberately. Because you know better than most what it costs when people do not show up. So you find the ones who do. The grief is real and it does not go away completely, and you do not have to pretend it does. But it also does not get to be the only thing. You are more than the absence. Your children are more than the grandmother they do not have. And what you are building, this life you are constructing without a blueprint, is something worth being proud of. You did not get a mother who showed you how, so you became a mother who figures it out anyway. That is not a consolation prize, that is the whole story. If this episode is your life, if you are doing this without a blueprint, drop a comment. Tell me one thing you had to figure out alone that you wish someone had just told you. I want to know. And I want the women watching who are in the same place to find each other here. Share this one with someone who needs it. There are women carrying this silently who have never heard it named out loud. This might be the episode that changes that for someone. Subscribe if you are not already. Next time, we will be switching gears altogether and discussing the silent battle that lies between working moms and stay-at-home moms. This episode could truly resonate with you because I believe it names something that I think every mom has felt and nobody has been willing to say with full honesty on both sides. If you have a motherhood story you would like to share or a topic you would love to hear discussed, you can submit it completely anonymously through the Google form below. Your story may be featured on an upcoming episode of Motherhood Unfiltered. I am Meve Calloway. This is Motherhood Unfiltered. See you next time.